What would you do if you discovered the man you loved was lying about everything? Sienna Marshall stood in front of the full-length mirror in her Brooklyn apartment, adjusting the emerald green dress Marco had sent her that morning. The silk clung to her curves in ways that made her feel both powerful and vulnerable. Her dark skin glowed against the rich color, and she had styled her natural hair in an elegant updo that showed off the diamond earrings Marco had given her for their 6-month anniversary last week. Tonight was important. Tonight, Marco was finally taking her to meet his family. After months of vague excuses about his complicated family situation, about waiting for the right time, about wanting to make sure they were serious first, he had finally invited her to a family dinner at his brother's penthouse in Manhattan. Marco Ricci had swept into Sienna's life like a romance novel come to life. 28 years old, devastatingly handsome with his dark Italian features, warm brown eyes, and that accent that made everything sound like seduction. He had approached her at an art gallery opening where she was curating an exhibition on contemporary Italian artists, had asked intelligent questions about the work, had made her laugh, had asked for her number with a confidence that somehow did not feel arrogant. Their relationship had been a whirlwind. Expensive dinners at restaurants Sienna could never afford on her curator's salary, weekend trips to the Hamptons, gifts that were generous but never quite excessive enough to make her uncomfortable. Marco was attentive, romantic, seemingly perfect. There were odd moments, of course, times when his phone would ring and he would step away to take calls that he never explained. Occasions when he would cancel dates at the last minute with apologetic messages about family business. The way he never wanted to talk about his family, never shared details about his childhood or his relationship with his brother. But Sienna had convinced herself these were just quirks. Everyone had complicated family situations. Everyone had parts of their lives they were not ready to share. She had fallen for Marco's charm, his attention, the way he made her feel like the most important person in any room. "Your ride is here," Marco texted. "Cannot wait for you to meet everyone. Alessandro is going to love you." Alessandro, Marco's older brother. In 6 months, Marco had mentioned him exactly 4 times, always in vague terms, always with a tone that suggested complicated emotions Sienna could not quite decipher. Respect mixed with something else. Resentment, maybe. Or fear. The town car that picked Sienna up was not what she expected. Not Marco's usual style. This was something more serious. A black sedan with tinted windows and a driver who nodded politely but did not make small talk as he navigated through Manhattan traffic toward the Upper East Side. The building was one of those intimidating, glass and steel towers where apartments cost more than most people made in a lifetime. The doorman greeted the driver by name and ushered Sienna into a private elevator that required a keycard to operate. The elevator rose silently to the penthouse level, and Sienna's nervousness increased with every floor. Marco had told her the dinner was casual, family only, nothing to worry about. So why did she feel like she was walking into something far more significant than a simple family meal? The elevator opened directly into a penthouse foyer that took Sienna's breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park, modern Italian furniture that Sienna recognized from design magazines she could not afford. Art on the walls that included what looked like an original Caravaggio that should have been in a museum. This was not Marco's aesthetic. Marco liked trendy restaurants and beach houses. This space spoke of old money, serious power, and tastes that were cultivated over generations rather than acquired overnight. "Bella, you are here!" Marco appeared from somewhere deeper in the apartment, his smile bright but his eyes holding something Sienna could not quite read. "You look absolutely stunning." He kissed her cheek, and Sienna noticed his cologne was different, stronger, like he was trying to cover something up. "Nervous, maybe?" "Your brother has an incredible home," Sienna said, looking around. "You did not tell me he was this successful." Something flickered in Marco's expression. "My brother is very successful, yes. He has built an empire. Come, I will introduce you." But as Marco led her deeper into the penthouse, Sienna felt a growing unease. The apartment was too quiet, too empty. Where was the family Marco had promised? Where were the parents he had mentioned? The cousins, the aunts, and uncles who supposedly gathered for these dinners? "Marco," Sienna said slowly, "where is everyone?" "They will be here soon," Marco said, but his voice was unconvincing. "I wanted you to arrive first, to have a moment to see the place before it gets crowded." They entered a massive living room, and that was when Sienna saw him. Standing by the windows, Silhouetted against the New York skyline was a man who made every nerve in Sienna's body come alive with an intensity that terrified her. He was taller than Marco, broader in the shoulders, with the kind of presence that commanded attention without any visible effort. Dark hair that was graying slightly at the temples. A tailored suit that probably cost more than Sienna's annual salary. And when he turned to face them, Sienna felt the air leave her lungs. Alessandro Ricci was beautiful in a way that was almost dangerous. Sharp features that looked carved from marble. Dark eyes that were not warm like Marco's but intense, assessing, seeing everything. A jaw that could have been sculpted by Michelangelo. And an expression that held none of Marco's easy charm but instead promised something far more complicated. Sienna had never believed in instant attraction, had always thought that kind of thing was fiction. But the moment Alessandro's eyes met hers, she felt something shift in her chest. Something primal and terrifying and absolutely inappropriate given that she was there as Marco's girlfriend. "Alessandro," Marco said, his voice too bright. "This is Sienna. Sienna Marshall. I have told you about her." Alessandro's gaze moved over Sienna with an intensity that felt almost physical, studied her face, her dress, the way she stood, the way she met his eyes despite the fear and attraction warring inside her. "You have told me many things, Marco," Alessandro said, and his voice was deeper than Marco's, accented more heavily, with a roughness that suggested this was a man who gave orders and expected obedience. "But you neglected to mention how beautiful she is." The compliment should have been flattering, but the way Alessandro said it, the way he looked at her, felt more like an accusation than admiration. "Thank you," Sienna managed, her voice steadier than she felt. "You have a beautiful home. It serves its purpose," Alessandro said, not taking his eyes off her. "Tell me, Miss Marshall, what has my brother told you about our family?" The question was simple, but Sienna sensed dangerous undercurrents she could not name. "That you are a close family. That you are very successful. That tonight was an opportunity to meet everyone." Alessandro's expression did not change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. "Close family." He repeated the words like they tasted bitter. "And where, Marco, is the rest of this close family you promised Miss Marshall?" Marco shifted uncomfortably beside Sienna. "They are running late. You know how Mama is with timing." "Our mother," Alessandro said softly, dangerously, "is in Sicily visiting our aunt. She has been there for 3 weeks. So unless she has developed the ability to teleport, she will not be joining us for dinner tonight." The air in the room changed, became heavy with tension that Sienna did not understand but could feel pressing against her skin like a physical force. "Marco, what is going on?" Sienna asked, her voice quiet. Before Marco could answer, Alessandro took a step forward. A single step, but it felt like he had crossed the entire room. His presence filled the space, made everything feel smaller, more contained, more dangerous. "I will tell you what is going on," Alessandro said, his eyes never leaving Sienna's face. "My brother has brought you here under false pretenses. There is no family dinner. There is no gathering. There is only me, and you, and Marco's very interesting choice to bring you to my home without my permission." "I do not understand," Sienna said, looking between the brothers. "Marco, you said this was a family dinner." "It is," Marco insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. "Alessandro is family." Alessandro laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Family, that is, a generous interpretation of our relationship, fratellino, little brother, especially given your recent activities." "What activities?" Sienna asked, her confusion morphing into anger. "Marco, what is he talking about?" Alessandro pulled out his phone, pressed a few buttons, then turned the screen toward Sienna. It showed a series of photographs. Sienna, leaving her gallery. Sienna at a restaurant with Marco. Sienna at her apartment building. Sienna walking through Brooklyn. Dozens of photos, taken over months, documenting her every move. "You have been watching me," Sienna said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Why have you been watching me?" Alessandro's expression was unreadable. "Because my brother has been using you as bait in a very dangerous game, and I wanted to ensure you were not complicit in his schemes before I decided what to do about it." Sienna turned to Marco, shock and betrayal warring inside her. "What is he talking about? What game?" Marco's charming facade cracked. He looked younger suddenly, more vulnerable, more like a child caught doing something wrong than the confident man Sienna had been dating. "Tell her," Alessandro commanded. Tell her who you really are. Tell her who I am. Tell her why you pursued a relationship with a woman you knew I would be attracted to. The words hung in the air. A woman you knew I would be attracted to. Implying that Alessandro had seen Sienna before Marco ever approached her. Implying that Marco's entire relationship with Sienna had been calculated. Marco, Sienna said, her voice shaking. Talk to me. Right now. Marco ran a hand through his hair, all his smooth confidence evaporating. My brother runs one of the largest criminal organizations in New York, he said bluntly. The Ricci family. We are, to use the polite term, connected. And I have been trying to get out from under his control for years. Criminal organization, Sienna repeated, her mind struggling to process the words. You mean the Mafia? You are in the Mafia. I was born into it, Marco said. I did not choose it, and I have been trying to build a life outside of it, away from Alessandro's shadow, away from the violence and the power games. And I fit into this how? Sienna asked, though she was beginning to understand, beginning to see the manipulation that had defined their entire relationship. Marco had the decency to look ashamed. Alessandro has been trying to arrange a marriage for me, a union with another family to strengthen alliances. I did not want that life. So I started dating you. Publicly. Making it clear I had chosen someone myself. Someone outside the life. Someone he could not control. You used me, Sienna said flatly. Our entire relationship was a lie. You pursued me because you thought it would anger your brother. Not just anger him, Alessandro said, his voice cutting through Marco's stammered attempts at explanation. Marco pursued you because I had already noticed you, because I had made the mistake of mentioning that I found the brilliant young curator at the downtown gallery intriguing, and my brother, in his endless campaign to prove his independence, decided to claim you first. Sienna felt sick. Everything she had thought was real, everything she had believed about her relationship with Marco, had been a manipulation, a power play between brothers who apparently treated women like chess pieces in their family war. I need to leave, Sienna said, turning toward the elevator. I need to get out of here. Both of you are insane. You have 3 seconds, Alessandro said quietly. The words stopped Sienna in her tracks. 3 seconds for what? She asked, her back still to the brothers. 3 seconds to decide if you want to walk away with questions that will haunt you forever, or stay and hear the complete truth about why you are really here. Sienna should have kept walking, should have called the elevator, left the building, blocked both brothers' numbers, and never looked back. But something, in Alessandro's voice, something in the tension vibrating through the room, made her pause. Talk, she said, still not turning around. You have 3 minutes. Then I am leaving and calling the police about your stalking activities. Fair enough, Alessandro said. The truth is this. Marco brought you here tonight, not just to introduce you to family, but to propose, to put on a performance where he asks you to marry him in front of me, forcing me to either acknowledge his choice or reveal the extent of my objections to a civilian. It is a power play designed to put me in an impossible position. That is not true, Marco protested weakly. Show her the ring, Alessandro said. The one in your jacket pocket. The one you purchased 3 days ago with my money from an account you think I do not monitor. Marco's face went pale. He slowly reached into his jacket and pulled out a small velvet box. Opened it to reveal a diamond ring that was beautiful and expensive and completely meaningless given the circumstances. You were going to propose, Sienna said, finally turning to face them both. Tonight. As part of some manipulation. I was going to propose because I care about you, Marco said desperately. Yes, it started as a game, as rebellion. But Sienna, these past 6 months, I have genuinely fallen for you. The proposal is real. My feelings are real. Nothing about you is real, Sienna said coldly. You have lied to me about everything. Your name, your family, your life, everything. My name is real, Marco protested. Marco Ricci. That has always been true. But you conveniently left out the part about being part of a mafia family, Sienna said. You let me fall for a version of you that does not exist. And you, she said, turning to Alessandro, have been watching me for months, without my knowledge or consent, taking photographs, following me, invading my privacy because of some rivalry with your brother. You are both terrible people. Alessandro inclined his head slightly, accepting the accusation. You are correct. We are terrible people. I have done things that would horrify you, made choices that haunt me. hurt people in ways that can never be undone. But I have never lied to a woman about who I am. I have never used someone's genuine feelings as a weapon against family. Oh, you are so much better, Marco said bitterly. You just destroy anyone who gets close to you through fear and control instead of lies. At least I tried to build something real. You built nothing, Alessandro said, his voice sharp as a blade. You took a woman I was interested in, pursued her specifically to wound me, then convinced yourself your manipulation was romance. You are a child playing at rebellion without understanding the consequences. Stop, Sienna said loudly. Both of you stop talking about me like I am not standing right here. Like I am a prize to be won or a weapon to be used. I am a person who thought she had found something genuine, who trusted someone, who opened her heart. Her voice broke slightly on the last words, and she hated herself for showing vulnerability in front of these men who had both betrayed her in different ways. You deserve better than both of us, Alessandro said quietly. You deserve honesty and respect, and a man who sees you as more than a tool for revenge or rebellion. And for what it is worth, I am sorry you were caught in the middle of this family war. Not sorry enough to not photograph me for months. Sienna shot back. No, Alessandro admitted. Not sorry enough to stop watching you. Because the truth, Miss Marshall, is that I have been obsessed with you since I first saw you at that gallery 6 months ago. I should have approached you myself, should have been honest about my interest. But I am a coward who hides behind surveillance and control instead of risking genuine connection. And my brother exploited that cowardice to hurt me. The honesty was startling, brutal, not an excuse, just a raw admission of his failures. So what happens now? Sienna asked. I walk away, and you two continue your dysfunctional family drama? Do I have to worry about retaliation, about being collateral damage in whatever comes next? You walk away free, Alessandro said. No one will bother you. No one will approach you or contact you. You have my word. The word of a Mafia boss, Sienna said. That is supposed to reassure me? In my world, yes, Alessandro said simply. I keep my word. Always. It is one of the few principles I have left. Sienna looked at Marco, who looked devastated and angry and young. Whatever feelings he had claimed to have for her seemed real in that moment, but they were also built on a foundation of lies and manipulation that could never be overcome. Do not contact me again, Sienna said to Marco. Do not call, do not text, do not show up at my gallery. We are done. We never really began, but whatever you thought we had is over. Sienna, please, Marco started. 3 seconds, Alessandro said, softly, but with absolute authority. You have 3 seconds to accept her decision with dignity, Marco, or I will ensure your attempts to contact her result in consequences you will not enjoy. Marco looked at his brother with an expression of pure hatred, then at Sienna with something that might have been genuine regret. Then he turned and walked out of the penthouse, slamming the door behind him, leaving Sienna alone with Alessandro Ricci, the most dangerous man in the room, the man who had been watching her for months, the man whose presence made her nervous system fire in ways that had nothing to do with fear and everything to do with an attraction she absolutely should not be feeling. I should leave too, Sienna said, but she did not move toward the elevator. You should, Alessandro agreed, but you have questions. And despite everything, you want answers. He was right, damn him. Sienna had 1,000 questions burning through her mind. Why did you watch me instead of approaching me? She asked. If you were interested, if you saw me at the gallery and wanted to meet me, why the surveillance instead of a simple introduction? Alessandro moved to a bar cart and poured 2 glasses of whiskey, held one out to Sienna. She hesitated, then took it. Took a sip that burned down her throat and gave her courage she was not sure she wanted. Because men like me do not get simple introductions, Alessandro said, pouring his own drink. Men like me destroy beautiful things. We bring violence and danger and complications that innocent people should never have to navigate. I saw you at that gallery, brilliant and passionate about art, talking about Caravaggio's use of light like you were discussing something sacred, and I knew that touching your life would corrupt it, so I watched from a distance, telling myself it was enough to just see you happy and safe. That is the worst romantic logic I have ever heard, Sienna said. You stalked me because you thought you would be bad for me. Do you understand how messed up that is? Completely, Alessandro said without defensiveness. I am not trying to justify my actions. I am simply explaining them. I am a man who controls everything in his world except his own desires. and you became a desire I could not control. So I did what I always do. I tried to manage it through observation and distance. And then your brother approached me, Sienna said, the pieces clicking together. He saw me at the gallery, too. He saw me watching you, Alessandro corrected. Saw my interest. And being Marco, he decided the best way to establish his independence was to pursue the woman I wanted, to prove he could take something from me. That is sick, Sienna said. Your entire family is sick. Yes, Alessandro agreed simply. We are products of a violent world with twisted values. But Sienna, I need you to understand something. Everything my brother said about falling for you, about his feelings becoming real over 6 months, that is, probably true. Marco is many things, but he is not entirely without heart. He pursued you for the wrong reasons, but I believe he cared about you. Why are you defending him? Sienna asked. After he manipulated both of us? Because he is my brother, Alessandro said. Because despite everything, I love him. And because I do not want you to leave here thinking every moment of your relationship was meaningless. You were manipulated, yes. But you were also genuinely cared for by a foolish young man who made terrible choices. The generosity was unexpected. Made Alessandro somehow more human and more dangerous at the same time. I need to go home, Sienna said, setting down her whiskey glass. I need to process everything that happened tonight. I need to figure out what comes next. I will have my driver take you, Alessandro said. No, Sienna said firmly. No more drivers. No more surveillance. No more involvement from either Ricci brother in my life. I will call my own car. Alessandro nodded, slowly. Before you go, may I ask you one question? Sienna braced herself. What? Do you feel it too? Alessandro asked. This thing between us, this attraction that has nothing to do with logic or appropriateness. I know you do. I saw it in your eyes when you first looked at me, and I need to know if I imagined it or if it was real. Sienna should have lied, should have denied the electric current that had been running between them since the moment she saw him. But she was tired of lies, tired of games. Yes, she admitted. I felt it. I feel it. And that makes this whole situation even worse. Because whatever this is, whatever attraction exists between us, it is built on a foundation of stalking and manipulation and family dysfunction. So yes, I feel it. And no, it does not matter. Because I will not be another piece in your family games. She walked to the elevator, pressed the button, waited for the doors to open. Sienna, Alessandro said as she stepped inside. I am sorry. For all of it. You deserved better. Everyone deserves better than what they get, Sienna said. That is just life. The doors closed, and she was alone in the elevator, shaking with adrenaline and anger and a dangerous attraction to a man she should absolutely never see again. Over the next 2 weeks, Sienna threw herself into her work at the gallery. A new exhibition on Baroque Italian art required her complete attention. Long hours cataloging pieces, writing exhibition notes, coordinating with artists and collectors. She avoided her apartment as much as possible. Stayed late at the gallery. Went home only to sleep. Marco respected her demand for no contact. Alessandro kept his word about surveillance ending. Her life returned to normal, except for the hollow feeling in her chest that reminded her everything she had thought was real had been a lie. Late one evening, as Sienna locked up the gallery, she noticed a figure standing across the street. Tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a long, dark coat. Alessandro. Her heart jumped, and she hated her body for its betrayal. She should feel nothing but anger toward this man, but instead, she felt that same dangerous pull that had gripped her in his penthouse. Alessandro crossed the street with measured steps. I am not following you, he said as greeting. I was in the neighborhood and saw the lights still on. Thought I would check if you were all right. You were in the neighborhood, Sienna repeated skeptically. In this part of Brooklyn, at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday. I own property nearby, Alessandro said. Legitimate business interests. But yes, I may have also been hoping to see you. I told you both to leave me alone, Sienna said, but her voice lacked the conviction it should have had. You did, Alessandro acknowledged, and I have respected that boundary for 2 weeks. But Sienna, I cannot stop thinking about you. I cannot stop replaying our conversation, cannot stop wishing I had handled everything differently. There is no version of events where this ends differently, Sienna said. You are a criminal, a mafia boss, a man who controls people through fear. I am a gallery curator who cares about art and beauty, and things that have nothing to do with your world. We exist in completely different universes. Do we? Alessandro asked. Because from where I stand, you are a woman who appreciates Caravaggio's treatment of darkness and light. A woman who understands that beauty can emerge from violent subjects when handled with skill and honesty. That sounds like someone who might understand my world better than you think. Understanding your world does not mean I want to be part of it, Sienna countered. No, Alessandro agreed, but it might mean you do not have to fear it as much as you think. Sienna, I am not asking for a relationship. I am not asking you to forgive me or trust me or let me into your life. I am simply asking if you would let me apologize properly. Over dinner, somewhere public. No games, no manipulation. Just two people having a conversation. Sienna knew she should say no, should establish firm boundaries and walk away from this dangerous attraction. But standing on that Brooklyn street, looking at Alessandro's intense gaze, feeling the pull between them, she found herself wavering. One dinner, she said. Public place. And Alessandro, if I even suspect you are trying to manipulate me, if I feel like this is another game, I walk away and you never contact me again. Understood? Understood, Alessandro said. Tomorrow night? There is an excellent Italian restaurant in the West Village. Very public. Very safe. Fine, Sienna said. Text me the details. As Alessandro walked away, Sienna wondered if she was making the biggest mistake of her life, or finally admitting to something she had been denying since that night in his penthouse. The restaurant was exactly as promised. Small, intimate, but public, with excellent food and the kind of atmosphere that made conversation easy. Alessandro arrived first, dressed more casually than before. Dark jeans, a charcoal sweater that emphasized his build, looking less like a mafia boss and more like a successful businessman. But Sienna was not fooled. She saw the way the staff treated him with deference that went beyond normal customer service, the way other diners gave his table extra space, the subtle presence of what were obviously security personnel stationed near the entrance. This is your restaurant, she guessed as she sat down. I own it. Yes, Alessandro admitted, but I promise I chose it for the food and ambiance, not for home field advantage. Although I will concede it does not hurt to meet somewhere I can ensure your complete safety. Safety from what? Sienna asked. Are there threats I should know about? There are always threats in my world, Alessandro said, but none directed at you specifically. I simply prefer to control my environment when possible. They ordered wine and food, and for the first hour, they talked about art. Alessandro was surprisingly knowledgeable about Italian Renaissance and Baroque periods. Discussed Caravaggio, Artemisia Gentileschi, Bernini, with the kind of passion that suggested genuine interest rather than rehearsed information meant to impress. My mother was an art history professor before she married my father, Alessandro explained. She raised us surrounded by art books and museum trips. She insisted that even if we were going into the family business, we would understand beauty and culture. Your mother is still in Sicily? Sienna asked. She divides her time, Alessandro said. She cannot fully leave the life, but she tries to maintain some distance. Tries to pretend her sons are legitimate businessmen rather than what we really are. And what are you really? Sienna asked, beyond the obvious answer. Alessandro considered the question seriously. I am a man trying to honor my father's legacy while also building something different. My father was old. School. Violence first, business second. I have spent 15 years trying to transition the organization toward more legitimate enterprises. It is slow, complicated, dangerous. But I am trying to build something my children, if I ever have them, could inherit without shame. Why? Sienna asked. Why try to change if you were born into it? If it is all you know? Because I saw what the violence did to my father, Alessandro said quietly. Saw him become someone my mother could barely recognize. Saw him make choices that destroyed families, including our own. I do not want that legacy. I want to be remembered as someone who used power to build rather than destroy. The honesty was disarming. This was not what Sienna expected from a mafia boss. Not this introspection. Not this awareness of consequences and legacy. Tell me about your brother, Sienna said. About your relationship with Marco. Alessandro's expression darkened. Marco is 8 years younger than me. When our father died, I stepped into the leadership role at 21. Marco was 13. Just a boy. I tried to protect him from the worst of it. tried to give him options outside the family business, encouraged his interests in art, travel, the kind of life I never got to have. But he resents you anyway, Sienna observed. He resents that I tried to protect him, Alessandro said. Sees it as control rather than care. And perhaps he is partially right. Perhaps I did hold him back, tried to shape him into something I thought was better instead of letting him choose his own path. And I became a casualty of that family drama, Sienna said. Yes, Alessandro said, meeting her eyes directly. You became a weapon Marco used to hurt me. And I became a fool who let my obsession with you blind me to what he was planning. We both failed you, Sienna. But I need you to understand. My feelings for you were never about revenge or games. From that first night I saw you, you were different, special. Someone I wanted to know, not control. Pretty words, Sienna said. But Alessandro, you are still a criminal. You still do things I probably do not want to know about. How am I supposed to reconcile my attraction to you with the reality of who you are? I do not know, Alessandro admitted. I do not have answers for you. I can only tell you that I am trying to be better. That your judgment, your principles, make me want to be someone worthy of your respect. But I will not lie to you. I am not a good man. I will never be the safe, uncomplicated partner you deserve. Then why are we here? Sienna asked. Why this dinner? Why pursue this? Because life is short, Alessandro said intensely. Because genuine connection is rare. Because I have felt more alive in the few hours I have spent talking to you than in years of carefully controlled existence. And because I think, despite all the logical reasons you should walk away, you feel it too. He was right, damn him. Sienna did feel it. This dangerous, inappropriate, absolutely inconvenient attraction to a man who represented everything she should avoid. If I let myself explore this, she said carefully, what would that look like? I am not naive enough to think we could have a normal relationship. You are a mafia boss. I am a civilian. Those worlds do not overlap without consequences. Complete honesty, Alessandro said immediately. I tell you everything about my world, my business, the dangers. You get to decide what you can accept and what crosses lines. No lies, no manipulation. And Sienna, if at any point you want out, you walk away free. No retaliation, no guilt, no consequences. And your brother? Sienna asked. What happens with Marco? Marco has moved to California, Alessandro said. I helped him establish a gallery there. Legitimate business, far from New York, far from me. He needs space to grow up, to figure out who he is without my shadow. And he needs to learn that actions have consequences. You exiled your brother for me, Sienna said, slowly. Or was it for yourself? Both, Alessandro admitted. He crossed lines that could not be uncrossed. But also, I wanted him away from you, from the temptation to cause more damage. They talked for hours. Alessandro shared stories about his life, his organization, the moral compromises he made daily. Sienna told him about her childhood, her passion for art, her fears about getting involved with someone so dangerous. And slowly, through conversation and wine and the chemistry that refused to be denied, they built something fragile and real, something that had nothing to do with Marco or manipulation. Just two complicated people choosing to explore a connection they could not explain. Come back to my penthouse, Alessandro said, as they left the restaurant. Not for anything physical, just to talk more. I have something I want to show you. Sienna knew she should say no, but she also knew she was going to say yes. The penthouse was different in the evening, less intimidating. Alessandro put on jazz music, poured them drinks, and led Sienna to his study. The walls were covered in art, not expensive pieces meant for display, but personal collection. Caravaggio prints, modern Italian artists, and in one corner, a piece that made Sienna gasp. That is from your gallery, she said, recognizing her own exhibition from 6 months ago, the contemporary piece exploring immigrant experiences in New York. I bought it the night I first saw you, Alessandro admitted. You were so passionate describing the artist's vision, made me see the work differently. I wanted something that would remind me of that moment, of you. You have been obsessed with me for 6 months, Sienna said, but without judgment, just stating fact. Obsessed, fascinated, captivated, Alessandro said. Choose whatever word you like. You have been on my mind every day since that gallery opening. Show me more, Sienna said. Show me who you are when you are not being the mafia boss everyone fears. For the next hours, Alessandro shared his private world, his art collection, his book collection that included philosophy, poetry, history, the music he loved, the dreams he had for transforming his organization. He was complicated, layered, far more than the stereotype of a mafia boss. And somewhere around 2 a.m, as they sat on his couch discussing Caravaggio's use of violent subjects to explore redemption, Alessandro reached out and gently touched Sienna's cheek. "I want to kiss you," he said. "But only if you want it too. No pressure, no expectation, just honesty." Sienna looked at this dangerous, complicated, surprisingly vulnerable man, thought about all the reasons she should say no, and then thought about the connection they had built over hours of conversation. "Yes," she said simply. The kiss was nothing like Marco's kisses had been. Marco had been practiced, smooth, designed to please. Alessandro kissed her like she was air he needed to breathe, like she was the answer to a question he had been asking his entire life. Intense, consuming, but also surprisingly gentle. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Alessandro rested his forehead against hers. "This is real," he said. "Whatever complications we face, this connection is real. Tell me you feel it." "I feel it," Sienna admitted. "And I am terrified. But yes, I feel it." "Good," Alessandro said. "Stay tonight. Just sleep beside me. I want to wake up with you in my arms. Nothing more. Just presence." Sienna should have said no, should have established boundaries, but instead, she found herself nodding. The kiss was nothing like Marco's kisses had been. Marco had been practiced, smooth, designed to please. Alessandro kissed her like she was air he needed to breathe, like she was the answer to a question he had been asking his entire life. Intense, consuming, but also surprisingly gentle. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Alessandro rested his forehead against hers. "This is real," he said. "Whatever complications we face, this connection is real. Tell me you feel it." "I feel it," Sienna admitted. "And I am terrified. But yes, I feel it." "Good," Alessandro said. "Stay tonight. Just sleep beside me. I want to wake up with you in my arms. Nothing more. Just presence." Sienna should have said no, should have established boundaries. But instead, she found herself nodding. Alessandro led her to his bedroom, a space that reflected the same elegant minimalism as the rest of the penthouse. But it also held personal touches. Books stacked on the nightstand, a photograph of what must have been his parents on the dresser. Art that was clearly chosen for emotional value rather than investment. He gave her one of his shirts to sleep in, turned away with old-fashioned courtesy while she changed. The shirt smelled like him, expensive cologne mixed with something distinctly male that made Sienna's pulse quicken. They fell asleep, facing each other in Alessandro's enormous bed. Hands clasped between them, and Sienna felt safer than she had in months. Safer with a mafia boss than she had with his civilian brother. The irony was not lost on her. The next morning, Sienna woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and Alessandro watching her with an expression that combined wonder and possession in equal measure. "Good morning," he said softly, his accent thicker in the early morning. "Good morning," Sienna replied, suddenly self-conscious about her natural hair spread across his pillow, about the intimacy of waking up in his bed. "This is crazy, you know. Everything about this is absolutely insane. Completely insane," Alessandro agreed. He reached out and gently touched one of her curls, his fingers careful, reverent. "You are beautiful, Sienna. Your mind, your spirit, your strength. Everything about you is beautiful." The compliment, delivered with such sincerity, made Sienna's heart clench. "This is really happening," she said quietly. "I am falling for, despite everything. Despite all the logical reasons I should run away." Alessandro pulled her closer, their bodies fitting together like they had been designed for this. "I fell for you months ago," he admitted. "That night at the gallery. You were wearing a yellow dress. Your hair was in braids. You were explaining to an elderly couple why Caravaggio's work mattered, why understanding light and darkness in art helped us understand it in life. And I thought, this woman understands. She sees the world the way I see it, as something that contains both beauty and violence, and the beauty is more precious because of the violence." "That is a very dark romantic philosophy," Sienna said. I am a very dark, romantic man, Alessandro replied. But Sienna, with you, I want to be more light than darkness. You make me want to be better. They stayed in bed for another hour, talking about everything and nothing. Alessandro shared stories about growing up in a Mafia family, the violence he had witnessed as a child, the impossible position he had been thrust into at 21 when his father was killed, the choices he made that still haunted him. He did not romanticize it or make excuses, just shared the truth of who he was. And Sienna told him about her own struggles, growing up as a black woman in spaces that were not designed for her, fighting for recognition in the art world, the loneliness of being passionate about things other people did not understand, the fear that she would never find someone who saw her completely. I see you, Alessandro said intensely. Every part of you, the strength and the vulnerability, the passion and the fear. And Sienna, I am not going anywhere. Whatever you need from me, however slowly we need to go, I am here. Stay today, he said. Let me show you my world. Let me prove I can be more than what you fear. And Sienna, throwing caution to the wind, agreed. Alessandro made breakfast, and Sienna discovered he was genuinely talented in the kitchen. Fresh pasta with ingredients he had flown in from Italy. Coffee that tasted like heaven. He cooked with the same focus and intensity he brought to everything, and watching him move around the kitchen was hypnotic. After breakfast, Alessandro took Sienna to his legitimate businesses. A construction company that built affordable housing in neighborhoods developers usually ignored. A waste management company that employed people with criminal records who could not get jobs elsewhere. An import company that brought Italian goods to America while providing fair wages to workers on both continents. This is what I am trying to build, Alessandro explained as they toured a construction site in the Bronx. Ways to use the organization's resources for good. To employ people, to improve communities, to create value instead of just extracting it. Sienna saw workers greet Alessandro with respect that seemed genuine rather than fear-based. Saw him remember names, ask about families, treat people with dignity. This was not what she expected from a Mafia boss, but Alessandro did not hide the darkness either. That afternoon, they returned to the penthouse and he showed her the reality of his world. Security footage of threats he dealt with daily. Financial reports that showed where the money really came from. Honest accounts of violence he had authorized when no other options remained. I am not going to lie to you, he said as they sat in his study reviewing documents that detailed his organization's activities. Some of what I do is legal. Much of it exists in gray areas. Some of it crosses lines that cannot be uncrossed. If you are going to be with me, you need to understand that completely. Why are you showing me this? Sienna asked. Why not just show me the good parts and hide the rest? Because I want honesty between us, Alessandro said. Complete honesty. You deserve to make informed choices about whether I am someone you can accept. And I refuse to start this relationship, if that is what we are building, with the kind of lies my brother told you. Sienna spent hours reading through documents, asking questions, processing the reality of what being with Alessandro would mean. He answered everything candidly, did not minimize or excuse, just explained the calculus of his world and let her draw her own conclusions. As the sun set over Manhattan, Sienna finally looked up from the documents spread across Alessandro's desk. I should be horrified, she said. I should be calling the police or running away or making 1,000 excuses about why this can never work. But you are not, Alessandro observed. No, Sienna admitted. Because I understand context. I understand that your world operates by rules most people do not see. I understand that you are trying to minimize harm while navigating impossible situations. And I understand that the man you are trying to become is more important than the man you have had to be. You are very forgiving, Alessandro said. I am very realistic, Sienna corrected. I am not naive enough to think you are a hero, but I am also not cynical enough to think you are purely a villain. You are a complicated man, making difficult choices in a violent world, and somehow, that is exactly what I need. What you need? Alessandro asked, moving closer. I have spent my whole life playing it safe, Sienna explained. Dating appropriate men, making careful choices, building a respectable career, and none of it made me happy. None of it made me feel alive. You, with all your complications and dangers, make me feel more alive than I have ever felt. Sienna, Alessandro said, his voice rough with emotion. You have no idea what hearing that does to me. Then show me, Sienna said, standing up and moving into his space. Show me what I do to you. Alessandro's control, that careful restraint he had maintained since they met, finally cracked. He kissed her with an intensity that left no doubt about his desire. His hands tangled in her hair, tilted her head back so he could deepen the kiss. Sienna pressed against him, feeling his heart racing against hers, feeling the barely leashed power in his body. Are you certain? Alessandro asked, pulling back just enough to search her face. Because once we cross this line, I will not be able to let you go. I will want all of you. I will be possessive and demanding and absolutely unwilling to share. Good, Sienna said. Because I do not want safe or easy. I want you. All of you. Alessandro lifted her easily, carried her back to his bedroom. This time, there was no pretense of just sleeping. This was passion, raw and undeniable, that had been building since that first moment their eyes met. He undressed her slowly, reverently, treating her body like art he wanted to memorize, kissed every inch of skin he revealed, told her in Italian how beautiful she was, how much he wanted her, how he had dreamed of this moment for months. When they finally came, together, it was with an intensity that felt almost spiritual. Not just physical connection, but something deeper. Two people choosing each other despite impossible odds. Two souls finding home in each other. Afterward, as they lay tangled together, Alessandro traced patterns on Sienna's skin. I have never felt this before, he admitted. This completeness. Like you are the piece I did not know was missing. I know, Sienna said. I feel it too. It is terrifying and perfect at the same time. They spent the entire weekend in Alessandro's penthouse, making love, talking for hours, building a foundation of honesty and intimacy that neither had experienced before. Alessandro shared his dreams for transforming his organization. Sienna talked about her plans to expand the gallery. They discovered shared passions for art, literature, social justice issues. But reality intruded on Monday morning when Alessandro's phone rang with urgent business. Sienna watched him transform from the gentle lover she had spent the weekend with into the Mafia boss everyone feared. His voice became harder. His expression closed off. He issued orders in rapid Italian that Sienna could not follow but that clearly involved violence. I have to handle something, Alessandro said after ending the call. A rival organization has made a move that requires immediate response. I will be gone most of the day. What kind of response? Sienna asked. The kind that involves making clear we are not to be challenged, Alessandro said carefully. The kind I do not want you involved in or aware of the details. Because it involves violence, Sienna said flatly. Yes, Alessandro admitted. Because it involves violence that is necessary to prevent more violence. But Sienna, this is my world. This is what I meant when I said there would be complications. Sienna thought about the documents she had read, about the reality of Alessandro's life, about the fact that being with him meant accepting this side of him. Be safe, she said finally. And come back to me. Relief flooded Alessandro's expression. He kissed her deeply, possessively. Always, he promised. I will always come back to you. That day set the pattern for their relationship over the following months. Sienna continued her work at the gallery. Alessandro continued running his organization. But they built a life together. Dinners at his penthouse where they cooked together. Weekends exploring New York's art scene. Late nights at her apartment where he pretended to be just a man in love rather than a mafia boss. Alessandro introduced her to his world gradually. First to his most trusted associates, then to the wider organization. Everyone understood she was important to him, that harming her would result in consequences no one wanted to face. But there were challenges. Sienna's friends worried about her safety. Her mother, when she finally learned about Alessandro's background, had a panic attack and begged Sienna to end the relationship. Other galleries began to question whether Sienna's success was legitimate or just the result of her connection to Alessandro's power. The first major crisis came 3 months into their relationship. A rival organization decided the best way to challenge Alessandro was through Sienna. She was leaving the gallery late one evening when 3 men surrounded her on the street. They did not hurt her, just delivered a message. Tell your boyfriend that he cannot protect everyone. Tell him that people he cares about are vulnerable. Tell him to back off or face consequences. Sienna managed to get away, called Alessandro immediately. He arrived within minutes, his expression more terrifying than she had ever seen it. Are you hurt? He asked, his hands gentle despite the violence radiating from every line of his body. No, Sienna said. They just scared me. delivered their message. Alessandro's jaw clenched. "This ends tonight," he said. "I am going to make very clear that threatening you is a mistake no one makes twice." "Alessandro, wait," Sienna started, but he was already on his phone, issuing orders in rapid Italian that made Sienna's blood run cold. That night, Alessandro disappeared for several hours. When he returned to his penthouse where Sienna was waiting with security, he had insisted she accept. His knuckles were bruised, and there was blood on his shirt that she suspected was not his own. "It is handled," was all he said. "No one will threaten you again." Sienna should have been horrified, should have questioned what Alessandro had done, but instead, she felt a dark satisfaction that he had protected her so absolutely. She was changing, she realized, becoming someone who accepted violence as a tool rather than an absolute wrong. "Is this who I am becoming?" she asked Alessandro as he showered and changed. "Someone who accepts brutal retaliation as normal?" "You are becoming someone who understands context," Alessandro said, "who recognizes that in my world, showing weakness invites more danger. What I did tonight was not about revenge. It was about establishing clear boundaries that protect you going forward." "But people might have died," Sienna said. "No one died," Alessandro said. "But they will remember what happens when they threaten what is mine. And Sienna, you are mine. I know that might sound possessive or controlling, but in my world, that declaration is protection. It means you are under my care, and harming you means facing my full wrath." The possessiveness should have bothered Sienna, but instead, it made her feel desired in ways she had never experienced. Alessandro did not just want her. He claimed her, protected her, treated her like she was the most precious thing in his world. Their intimacy deepened after that night. Sex became more intense, more consuming. Alessandro made love to her like he was proving she was his, and Sienna gave herself to him completely. Their connection was addictive, passionate, all-consuming in ways that probably were not healthy, but felt absolutely right. 4 months into their relationship, Alessandro took Sienna to meet his mother. Maria Ricci was in New York for a few weeks, staying at a beautiful brownstone in Brooklyn that Alessandro had purchased for her years ago. Maria was elegant, sharp-eyed, and saw through everything in the first 5 minutes. She embraced Sienna warmly but then pulled Alessandro aside for a private conversation in Italian that Sienna could not follow but that clearly involved pointed questions and maternal concern. When they returned, Maria smiled at Sienna. "My son tells me you know what he is," she said in accented English, "that he has been honest about the family business." "He has," Sienna confirmed. "Completely honest." "Good," Maria said. "Too many women fall in love with the fantasy of mafia power without understanding the reality. They see the money and the control and do not see the violence and the moral compromises." "You understand, yes?" "I understand," Sienna said. "It is complicated. But yes, I understand." Maria studied her for a long moment. "You love my son, not because of what he has, but despite what he does. That is good. He needs someone who sees him, not just his power." "I do love him," Sienna admitted. "I did not want to. I fought it. But yes, I love him." Maria smiled warmly. "Alessandro has been alone his whole life, surrounded by people but truly alone. He carries too much responsibility, makes too many impossible choices. You changed that. You made him want to be better. That is the greatest gift you could give him." Over lunch, Maria told stories about Alessandro as a child, how serious he had been even then, how he had protected his younger siblings after their father died, how he had struggled with the violence his position required but had found ways to channel it toward protection instead of pure destruction. "He trains every morning at a gym his grandfather opened," Maria said. "Boxes, until he exhausts himself. It is how he maintains control, how he channels all that rage and power into something structured instead of destructive." "I would like to see that," Sienna said. "Then I will take you," Alessandro said. "Tomorrow morning, 5 a.m. If you truly want to understand me, see me at my most raw." The next morning, Sienna met Alessandro at a gym in an industrial part of Brooklyn. The space was old-school boxing. Heavy bags, a regulation ring, the smell of sweat and leather and decades of hard work. Alessandro trained with an intensity that was almost frightening. Raw power channeled through precise technique. He worked the heavy bag until sweat poured off him, his muscles straining, his face set in concentration that bordered on meditation. When he finally stopped, Breathing hard, he looked at Sienna. "This is who I am," he said. "Someone who needs to burn off violence every day to remain human. Someone who fights against his worst impulses constantly. Do you still want me?" Sienna walked into the ring, stood close to him despite the sweat and the intensity. "Yes," she said. "I want all of you. The controlled and the barely controlled, the gentle and the violent. All of it." Alessandro kissed her right there in the ring, hard and claiming and absolutely possessive. "Mine," he said against her lips. "Say you are mine." "I am yours," Sienna said. "And you are mine." That became their morning routine. Sienna would join Alessandro at the gym, watch him train. Then they would have breakfast together before starting their separate days. It was intimate and domestic and gave Sienna insight into how Alessandro maintained the discipline that defined him. 6 months into their relationship, everything fell apart in a way neither expected. Marco returned from California. Sienna was at the gallery late one evening, reviewing plans for an upcoming exhibition. When he walked in, he looked different, older, more serious, with shadows in his eyes that had not been there before. "Sienna," he said, "I know you do not want to see me. I know I have no right to ask for your time, but I need to talk to you. About Alessandro, about the danger you are in." Sienna's first instinct was to call security. But something in Marco's expression, genuine fear rather than manipulation, made her pause. "You have 5 minutes," she said, "and I am calling Alessandro to let him know you are here." "Do not," Marco said urgently. "Not yet. Please, just listen. Then decide what to do." Against her better judgment, Sienna listened. Marco told her that Alessandro had powerful enemies, that his transition toward legitimate businesses had created vulnerabilities, that a coalition of rival organizations was planning something big, something that would target Alessandro through the people he loved. "They know about you," Marco said. "They know how important you are to him, and they are going to use you to destroy him. Sienna, you need to leave. Tonight. Disappear for a while until this is over." "Why are you telling me this?" Sienna asked. "Why do you care?" "Because despite everything, Alessandro is my brother," Marco said. "Because I used you cruelly and owe you better. And because if something happens to you, it will destroy him in ways no business defeat ever could." Sienna called Alessandro immediately after Marco left. He arrived at the gallery within minutes, his expression dark when she told him about Marco's warning. "He is not lying," Alessandro said grimly. "I have known about the coalition for weeks, have been trying to neutralize the threat without worrying you. But if they are making overt moves, if Marco heard about it from California, the situation is worse than I thought." "What does that mean?" Sienna asked. "It means I need to handle this quickly and decisively," Alessandro said. "And it means you need increased security. Round-the-clock protection until this is resolved." "No," Sienna said firmly. "No more hiding, no more half measures. If I am going to be with you, if we are building a life together, then I need to understand fully what that means. I need to know everything." Alessandro looked at her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "Come with me. There is something I need to show you." He took her to a building she had never seen before. Industrial, unmarked, in a part of Brooklyn most people avoided. Inside was a command center. Computers, surveillance equipment, maps on the walls showing territories and power structures. "This is where I run the organization," Alessandro explained. "This is where decisions are made. And Sienna, I want you to see exactly what I am dealing with." For the next several hours, Alessandro's most trusted advisors briefed them on the situation. The rival coalition had been building power for months. They saw Alessandro's transition toward legitimacy as weakness. They planned to strike at his business interests, his family, and yes, Sienna. The solution being proposed was brutal. Preemptive strikes against the coalition's leadership, eliminating threats before they could act. It was the old way, the violent way. Everything Alessandro had been trying to move away from, but the alternative might be losing everything, including Sienna. "I will not make this decision alone," Alessandro said, surprising everyone in the room. "Sienna, you have a right to weigh in. These people are targeting you. You deserve to be part of deciding how to respond." The advisors looked shocked. Bringing a civilian into strategic planning was unprecedented, but Alessandro's expression made clear this was not negotiable. "What are the real options?" Sienna asked. "Not just the violent ones. What else is possible?" The discussions went late into the night. Sienna, with her outside perspective, saw possibilities the organization's leaders had missed. Alliance building, exposing the coalition's illegal activities to authorities in ways that could not blow back on Alessandro. Creating situations where the coalition's members turned on each other. It was slower than violence, more complicated, but potentially more effective long-term. You think like a strategist, one of Alessandro's advisors said with grudging respect. This could work. Over the following weeks, Sienna became involved in planning at a level she never expected. She attended meetings, offered perspectives, helped craft approaches that minimized violence while still neutralizing threats. Alessandro's organization was changing, becoming something more sophisticated than pure force. And through it all, Alessandro and Sienna's relationship deepened. The crisis had forced them to truly become partners, to make decisions together, to trust each other completely. The resolution came not through a dramatic confrontation but through patient strategy. The coalition fell apart as its members were arrested, turned against each other, or decided Alessandro's new approach was more profitable than old-school violence. It took 2 months of careful maneuvering, but the threat was neutralized without the massive bloodshed everyone had feared. "You changed everything," Alessandro told Sienna one evening as they celebrated the resolution in his penthouse. "Not just for me, for the entire organization. You showed us there were other ways. Better ways. We did it together," Sienna corrected. "I just offered a different perspective." "It was more than that," Alessandro insisted. "You made me believe change was possible, made me want to be worthy of you." That night, as they made love with an intensity born of relief and renewed passion, Sienna knew she had made the right choice. That, choosing Alessandro, with all his complications, had led her to a life more meaningful than anything she could have imagined. The next morning, Alessandro was unusually quiet. Nervous, even. He made breakfast but barely touched his food. Kept looking at Sienna like he wanted to say something but could not find the words. "What is wrong?" Sienna finally asked. "You are making me nervous." Alessandro took a deep breath. "Sienna, these past months with you have been the best of my life. You have made me want to be better, made me believe I could be better. You have transformed not just me, but my entire world." He pulled a small box from his pocket, opened it to reveal a ring. Simple, elegant, with a single emerald that matched the dress Sienna had worn that first night at his penthouse. "Marry me," he said. "No games, no manipulation. Just a man who loves a woman and wants to build a life with her. I know it will be complicated. I know my world will always carry darkness. But Sienna, you are my light, my redemption, my reason to be better than I was. I am asking you to choose me, permanently, completely, to be my wife, my partner, my everything." Sienna looked at the ring, at Alessandro's intense gaze, at the future they could build together. She thought about that night 6 months ago, when she had stood in his penthouse, betrayed and angry, listening to him say, "You have 3 seconds." She had taken those 3 seconds to stay, to listen, to open herself to possibility, and those 3 seconds had changed everything. "Yes," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, I will marry you. I will choose you every day despite the complications, because you are worth the risk, because together we are building something beautiful out of something broken." Alessandro slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her close. "Thank you," he whispered against her hair. "Thank you for seeing me, for choosing me, for making me believe I could be someone worthy of your love." They married 3 months later in a ceremony that reflected both their worlds. A church in Sicily that had baptized Ricci men for generations. Sienna's family and friends mixing with Alessandro's organization. Traditional vows spoken in both English and Italian. Music that ranged from opera to jazz to the R&B Sienna grew up with. The morning of the wedding, Sienna sat in a room in Maria's Sicilian villa, surrounded by women from both families. Her mother was there, having finally accepted Alessandro after seeing how he treated Sienna with reverence and protection. Maria was there, helping Sienna with her veil, treating her like the daughter she had always wanted. Friends from New York, relatives from both sides, all coming together to celebrate a union that should not have worked, but somehow was absolutely perfect. "You are nervous," Maria observed, adjusting Sienna's veil. "This is normal. But Sienna, look at me. My son loves you with everything he is, and you love him the same way. That is all that matters." I am marrying a man who was a stranger 7 months ago, Sienna said. A man whose world I am still learning to navigate. What if I am not strong enough? What if I cannot handle the complications? You have already handled complications that would have broken most people, Maria said. You stood up to my son when others would have crumbled. You refused to be manipulated or controlled. You demanded honesty and partnership. Sienna, you are exactly strong enough. And Alessandro knows that. It is why he loves you. The ceremony was beautiful. Alessandro stood at the altar in a perfectly tailored tuxedo, looking at Sienna like she was the only person in the world. When she walked down the aisle on her father's arm, his expression transformed. Wonder, possession, devotion, love, all combined into something so intense, Sienna felt it across the entire church. The vows were traditional but felt completely personal. When Alessandro promised to love and cherish her all the days of his life, Sienna heard the deeper promise. That he would use his power to protect her. That he would be worthy of her choice. That he would spend every day earning her trust. And when Sienna promised to stand beside him in good times and bad, Alessandro heard what she was really saying. That she accepted all of him. The light and the darkness. The gentle and the dangerous. And that she would be his partner in transforming his world into something they could both be proud of. When the priest pronounced them married, Alessandro kissed Sienna with a passion that was probably inappropriate for a church, but felt absolutely right. Mine, he whispered against her lips. Finally. Completely mine. And you are mine, Sienna whispered back. My husband, my partner, my everything. The reception was a blend of cultures and traditions. Sicilian food served alongside Southern soul food Sienna's family had insisted on. Traditional Italian dances mixed with R&B and jazz. Alessandro's associates mingled with Sienna's artist friends, discovering unexpected common ground. Marco attended, having slowly rebuilt his relationship with both of them. He was still in California, still building his own life, but the rift between the brothers had begun to heal. He approached Sienna during the reception, his expression serious. I owe you an apology that goes beyond words, he said. I used you, manipulated you, put you in danger because of my own issues. And somehow you have been gracious enough to not destroy me for it. You were young and stupid, Sienna said. And you tried to make it right when it mattered. That counts for something. You are good for him, Marco said, glancing at Alessandro who was talking with Maria across the room. My brother has been alone his whole life, carrying responsibilities that would crush most people. You make him believe there is more to life than duty and control. That is a gift. He is good for me too, Sienna said. He makes me brave. Makes me believe I can handle anything as long as we face it together. Marco hugged her, a genuine embrace. Welcome to the family, Sienna. For real this time. Alessandro danced with Sienna under the Sicilian stars, the music slow and romantic, their bodies moving together with the ease of people who had become extensions of each other. What are you, thinking? Sienna asked, resting her head on his shoulder. That I am the luckiest man alive, Alessandro said. That you took a chance on me when you should have run. That you saw potential in me I did not even see in myself. That I get to spend the rest of my life worthy of the gift you have given me. The gift goes both ways, Sienna said. You made me believe that love does not have to be safe to be real. That sometimes the most meaningful relationships require courage and acceptance of complexity. You challenged everything I thought I knew about myself. Good, Alessandro said, pulling her closer. I want to keep challenging you. Keep surprising you. Keep showing you new sides of who we can be together. That night, in the villa's master suite that Maria had prepared for them, Alessandro and Sienna made love as husband and wife. It was tender and passionate, possessive and giving, a perfect expression of everything they had built together. Afterward, lying tangled in silk sheets, watching the moon over the Mediterranean through open windows, Sienna felt a completeness she had never imagined possible. I love you, Alessandro Ricci, she said. More than I thought possible, more than words can express. Ti amo, Sienna Ricci, Alessandro said. You are my heart, my soul, the reason I breathe. 1 year after their wedding, Sienna and Alessandro had transformed both their lives and his organization. The Ricci family was almost entirely legitimate, with only the smallest connections remaining to old criminal enterprises that were being phased out systematically. Alessandro had proven that power could be maintained through business acumen and strategic alliances rather than pure force. Sienna's gallery had become one of the most respected in New York, known for showcasing both established and emerging artists. She had expanded to include a second location in Brooklyn and was planning a third in Los Angeles. Her success was genuine, built on talent and vision, not just in Alessandro's connections, though his support had certainly helped open doors. Together, they had started the Ricci Foundation, which funded arts education in underserved communities across New York. They partnered with schools, community centers, and youth organizations to provide free art classes, supplies, and mentorship programs. It was Alessandro's wealth being used for genuine good, transforming his family's legacy from violence to creation. They lived between Alessandro's penthouse and a renovated brownstone in Brooklyn that felt more like a home. The brownstone had a studio where Sienna could work on her own art when she needed creative expression beyond curating. Alessandro had converted the basement into a private gym where he still trained every morning, maintaining the discipline that kept him centered. They traveled to Sicily regularly to visit Maria, who had become one of Sienna's closest confidantes. They hosted dinners where Alessandro's business associates mixed with Sienna's artist friends, creating unexpected connections and collaborations. The life they had built was rich, full, more meaningful than either had imagined possible. And on quiet evenings, they would sit together in their study, surrounded by art they both loved, and marvel at how 3 seconds had changed their entire lives. "You never regret it?" Alessandro asked one such evening. "Choosing me? Accepting all the complications?" "Never," Sienna said. "You are the best choice I ever made. The scariest, the most complicated, the most unlikely, but absolutely the best." Alessandro pulled her close, kissed her with the passion that had never dimmed despite the domesticity they had built. "I love you, Sienna Ricci. Every day I love you more than the day before." "I love you too," Sienna said. "My dangerous, reformed, surprisingly romantic husband." They made love right there in the study, passionate and connected, and absolutely certain they had found their perfect match. The next morning, Sienna woke to find Alessandro already awake, watching her with an expression of wonder and joy. "What?" she asked, smiling at his intensity. "I was thinking about children," Alessandro admitted. "About whether you want them. Whether you would want to raise children in my world." "Your world is different now," Sienna said. "Mostly legitimate, mostly safe, definitely more focused on building than destroying. And yes, I want children. I want to build a family with you." Alessandro's smile was brilliant. "Then we start trying immediately," he said. "Today, right now." Sienna laughed. "You are very demanding for someone who claims to be reformed." "I am reformed," Alessandro said, pulling her close. "But I am still possessive, demanding, and absolutely obsessed with you. That will never change." "Good," Sienna said, "because I am equally obsessed with you. My complicated, perfect, exactly right for me husband." 18 months after their wedding, Sienna gave birth to a daughter they named Sophia Grace. She had Alessandro's dark eyes and Sienna's beautiful skin tone, and she was absolutely perfect. Alessandro held his daughter with a tenderness Sienna had never seen before. "She is beautiful," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Like her mother, strong like her mother." "She will know her father was strong too," Sienna said, "that he built something good out of difficult circumstances, that he changed himself for love." "I changed myself for you," Alessandro corrected. "You made me want to be better." "No," Sienna said. "I just helped you become who you always had the potential to be." As they looked at their sleeping daughter, Sienna thought about the journey that had brought them here. From that first night in Alessandro's penthouse, when betrayal and anger had almost sent her running, when he had given her 3 seconds to decide her future, when she had chosen to stay. "Best 3 seconds of my life," Sienna whispered. "Mine too," Alessandro said. "Every day I am grateful you stayed. Every day I choose you again." "And I choose you," Sienna said. "Today, tomorrow, always." That is the story of Sienna, Marshall, and Alessandro Ricci. A story that began with betrayal and 3 seconds that changed everything. A story that proves first impressions can be deceiving, that love can emerge from the most unlikely circumstances, and that sometimes the most dangerous man is exactly the one you need. Sienna and Alessandro's love reminds us that people are complicated, that redemption is possible, that real change happens when someone believes in you enough to demand your best self. It shows us that family can be rebuilt, that violence can be channeled toward protection instead of destruction, and that partnership means facing challenges together rather than alone. Their story teaches us that 3 seconds can contain an entire future, that choosing to stay instead of run can lead to transformations neither person could imagine alone, that love is not about finding someone perfect, but about choosing someone perfectly imperfect and building something beautiful together. If this incredible story of dangerous love, intense passion, and transformative partnership moved you, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. We share new stories every week about real people who discovered that love does not follow rules, that second chances exist for everyone, and that sometimes the most meaningful relationships come from the most unlikely encounters. What did you think of Sienna and Alessandro's story? Have you ever had to choose between logic and your heart? Would you have given Alessandro those 3 seconds? Or would you have walked away? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing how these stories resonate with your own experiences of unexpected love, taking chances on complicated people, and building lives that defy expectations. Remember, sometimes 3 seconds is all it takes to change your entire life. Sometimes the most dangerous choice leads to the safest love. And sometimes choosing to stay instead of run is the bravest decision you will ever make. Thanks for listening, and we will see you in the next story.